Hello and welcome to episode 296 of The Crate and Crowbar. It is the 27th of September 2019. My name is Chris Sesson. Tonight I'm joined by Tom Francis.
Hello.
Hello. It's just you and I sat with our own bottles of whiskey that we individually brought in a house neither of us live in.
We have separate bottles of whiskey and we're sitting quite far apart in an otherwise empty room. If you want a mental image of this cozy setup.
Yeah, I think if you get the full picture, it's like there are no walls, floors or ceiling in this space. It extends kind of forever, except a kind of ominous, sort of faintly humming inverted pyramid in the far horizon.
Yeah, I was going to say, or like the platonic ideal of a podcast. Exactly. Just the bare minimum.
Just two dudes in an endless plain.
And whiskey.
We're actually we are in Marsh's endless boundless plain, but he's in Germany, so we let ourselves in. And now this is all that remains in the in the pod.
There's a new podcast.
Yeah, so we will discuss computer game.
Good.
But however, first is necessary to discuss subs.
Yeah, I feel like the news this week-ish, to me at least, was so Apple Arcade launched and with a lineup of something like 60 games, with I think another 40 to come, or 100 total in the first few months, I think is the plan. As a knock-on effect of that, a bunch of those games came out on PC as well, because the deal with Apple Arcade is that it is exclusive on mobile, or basically it can't be on, if you sign up with Apple Arcade and they want your game and they give you the money, that means you can't release it on Android, and you also can't include it as part of any other subservice. But that's it. You can release it on PC at the same time. You can release it on Epic Store, Steam, Switch, and all this stuff. And I actually just saw that What the Golf, which is out now in Apple Arcade. It's part of the launch lineup, but it isn't on PC yet. When it does come to PC, it's going to be an Epic Store exclusive, or at least their website says it's coming to Epic Store and doesn't mention Steam. And it also had a Fig campaign. And so they must have needed some money to make the game. It must have taken some doing to get that to work. But that's the kind of a cool thing about Apple Arcade, at least, is it's not the things they're buying up, and they're commissioning some of these games, like not the What the Golf, I don't think, but some of these games were just commissioned from scratch by Apple to be made for this service. And their deal does not prevent them from releasing it also on PC, which is kind of cool. But there's been a big discussion. Basically, there are multiple concerns about subscription services. One of which is this was rumored about Apple's thing. I don't know if it's true about Apple's thing, but Google have just announced Play Pass, which is going to be basically the same. It's a $5 subscription thing with a bunch of games included on Android's platforms. But their thing they have set up front is that developers get paid by playtime. And of course that's, yeah, that was the noise the internet made. Or the game development Twitter made.
Yeah.
Where somebody's post, I can't remember who this was, but somebody said something to the effect of like, I've known this was coming or I've seen this coming for a long time. This is kind of the death of the kind of games I make, because I want to make short narrative games and I don't want the player to play them for more than their duration. And so, yeah, it disincentivizes a certain kind of game. So like I say, people have I've heard rumors, or people have just been talking as if that's the model for Apple as well. I haven't seen any, actual reporting of that. And I was just listening to the Kotaku podcast, and Kirk Hamilton was saying the same thing. He kept hearing people talk as if that's true, but did some research and couldn't find any evidence that that's true. So I don't think we know how Apple are paying people. I thought it was just a lump sum, because I've just, again, rumors, but I've heard that the lump sums are good. It's like, it's worth it just for that. And to be honest, in some ways, it's a bad look, but I almost think it's not that relevant because I can't see it amounting to much. I gotta believe that the upside of doing these deals is going to be a lump sum. Like the residuals, I mean, looking like Spotify, what artists make from that, it just is always doom and gloom. Even if it's pathetic residuals.
So you're saying, so you're assuming that Google are paying a lump sum, but then they're gating subsequent pay based on playtime? I
don't know. I don't know anything beyond the fact that playtime is relevant in how you get paid for the Google thing. But yeah, if Apple are paying a lump sum, and even if they are adding some extra onto that for playtime, I bet it's not significant compared to the lump sum you get. And And if I was them, I would think I would just pay bigger lump sums. I think I wouldn't give anybody, because as soon as you give them a slice of it, you do kind of need to know what slice they should be getting. And there's no good way to do it that doesn't disincentivize some kind of games and incentivize other kinds of games. And I think one of the goals of Apple Arcade was to actually like break through the problem they had with, basically free to play dominating everything. Premium games can no longer be made. There's a certain kind of game that you can't monetize in a free to play way, without kind of ruining it. And so this is a way of fixing that. Like, people just pay $5 a month.
Yeah.
Apple pay the developer, and that can work. And it certainly frees the games of all the burden of that stuff. But of course, the flip side is the developer, there's a cap on what they're going to make from it. And it's harder to become independent if you weren't already through that. I think there are probably some developers who are doing this who are already financially independent, and this is going to be a nice little deal for them where the development pays for itself and then they carry on being independent. But if a lot of developers are living, deal to deal, basically, the last deal paid for the last game and now they're back at square one and they need a new deal to pay for the next game. And this one, from what it sounds like, Apple have, completely funded some of these games. And so that's great. But if after that you don't get any significant revenue from it, you're back to square one again, and you've got to do the same kind of deal.
And presumably, that doesn't necessarily explain how Apple go about selecting which games are going to get fully funded.
Yeah, that's the other thing, is we're back to the days of gatekeepers. Like,
right.
Now there's a
more
big corporation. Yeah, it's going to basically be a kingmaker and a gatekeeper and a kingmaker. They're going to mix their metaphors and basically just pick who gets money. And I mean, if you make premium games on mobile, then this news must have been a very mixed reaction, where, like, if you get picked, great. Now there is a way to actually make legit money from premium games on mobile. If you don't get picked, there's even less of a way to make it now. Like, it was already hard. And now there is a bunch of premium games that people can get for $5 a month. And yours isn't one of them. It's going to extra suck.
Yeah, right. Cause it feels like one of those decisions that someone in Apple's position can make, which is that if you search games on the App Store because you want something to play, it's a garbage fire a lot of times. There's obviously a lot of great stuff, but it's hard to find. And if you download the wrong thing, it's awful. And there's, issues with copycatting and, every problem that free to play, mechanics introduce or in-app purchases introduce. And this circumvents all of it, but sort of totally at the expense of any new developer, presumably entering that space, right?
Yeah, it's hard to see how a first timer gets in on this.
It feels like, to be honest, it feels like a limited venue for, like, if you have what you are confident is a really amazing idea, something that can, succeed for your business beyond, the sum you would get to make it, or recouping its costs with a profit or something. So it sort of feels like it's like an ideal vector for maybe like a studio of a certain size that doesn't want to grow much, or like a side project every now and then, right? Like, you've got an idea that's not really a big game, but if Apple want to give you X to, turn it around, then maybe that becomes worth it. Like, it's sort of, it's strange. And like, I wonder if that will have a kind of, this is maybe a bit further out as a take, but like a bit of a chilling effect on maybe, I don't know, I'm trying to think what it would take to succeed. Because if getting a really amazing selection of games on your iPhone is kind of as simple as like this $5 a month outlay that kind of solves all those decision-making problems for you, then if you're a developer who doesn't want to be part of that, but does want to succeed, and let's say that you're an established developer who has the resources to succeed, how good do you have to be to kind of overcome people's natural tendency to just be happy with the $5 they've spent this month and the stuff that furnishes them with? Yeah,
that's the thing that is potentially scary for me. Is so Apple Arcade means you're going to be on iPhone, iPad, Mac, and Apple TV. Apparently, I'm not quite sure how that works. But the fact they're going to be on Mac means that a lot of these games will come to PC as well. But more directly PC relevant is Xbox Game Pass, which is, PC as well now. And that they've sort of established that they are serious with that thing by making Gears 5 a part of it. So that's like a major flagship release for them, and it's just part of their subscription service. Just if you have Xbox Game Pass, you just get that for free. And of course, Outer Wilds was part of that. I think that was before Game Pass was on PC.
I think it was.
Wrong,
I thought Outer Wilds was Epic exclusive on PC, at least at first. Yeah.
And then Outer Worlds is also on Xbox Game Pass, and that is on PC. So I think if you're subscribed to that on PC, you're going to get that just, as part of your subscription. And Humble, monthly is a subscription service where you get, like, I don't know if you haven't looked in on that recently, the stuff that you get for that is kind of crazy. It's, it's, significantly better than a Humble bundle every month because it's major AAA stuff as well. And I've long worried about that thing where, like, I look at it and think, if I'm subscribed to this, why do I ever buy another game? And if you're subscribed to that and Game Pass and Apple Arcade or something on another service, it really is going to be a deluge of games where even if you have quite particular tastes, there's going to be good stuff in there for you. And so even more than already is the case, if you want to sell a game for money, then you've got to make it a sort of must-have. It's got to be something where people just like, I know I'm paying like $25 a month for all these fucking services and I'm getting more games than I can possibly play, but I must have this one. And that's tough.
Right. Yeah. And that is, it feels like in a way a return to a far more extreme form of curation than even existed previously. Because, in the more heavily curated days of Steam, that certainly had a king-making power just by virtue of that you're on that platform and you're in people's eye line. And you're part of Steam sales, then it's likely to do far better than if you're selling through your own website, right? If it's that era of indie, or even if you're on Xbox Live Arcade and people are having to exchange real money for Microsoft points, which they then give to you, and then you get some beans and you give the beans to a man, and the man speaks to a parrot, and the parrot opens a window and you look through the window and there's a sack of gold, and that's, as far as I understood it.
You take 600 beans at a time.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you have 700 beans, you can't get the other 600.
Yeah, well, yeah, and they always structure it so you end up with some redundant beans, which is I'm glad that system's mostly dead now.
Yeah.
Feels like, and this is the thing, because on one hand, it's sort of, it feels, like these are good deals, and it makes me happy, I think, to think, particularly when AAA games show up and things like the Xbox Game Pass, because I do think that the cost of entry for those kinds of games is getting very, very high, and the cost of making them is very, very high, and it feels like a not entirely sustainable business model, to be honest. And so, if figuring that out and giving people access to them and making sure people play those games and developers see a return that is sort of, maybe relatively secure, like a game can't flop massively because they're relying on the fact that they pretty much understand how many subs they have. And a game would probably have to be pretty terrible for it to suddenly evacuate subscribers who are already.
A lot of people are unsubscribing.
Yeah, exactly. So that is probably good for the stability of that part of the industry if it works.
It's interesting actually because I agree, and that sounds potentially like a cool thing. But I'm just remembering now that I read a fair bit about the TV renaissance or golden age, or the era of prestige TV, and how that all came about, and why there's so much good TV now, and there's so much money being paid to make it, and it basically became a kind of gold rush for networks and now Netflix and other services to lock down series where people will pay the subscription just to watch that one thing. Mm-hmm. So that's, what HBO hopes will happen. And so everyone is willing to gamble huge amounts of money to make these TV shows that are just really good quality. And on the assumption that if it works, then the people who like that show will just keep paying for your service for as long as that show runs. And it won't run forever, but by that point, it's become a habit and they won't leave. But we don't really have that with games. There are franchises, I guess, but.
Do you know who's, a really kind of sad thought just occurred to me. This mechanism was built for BioWare, old BioWare. Imagine, people always said at the time Mass Effect should have really been episodic, like a TV show, Star Trek episodes, basically. The way to do, the thing that would probably keep people hanging around in let's say an EA subscription or something like that would be every year you get the new installment of this story you're really attached to, and in the meantime you get a whole bunch of games that are all right. and there are enough bonuses for staying subscribed for a certain amount of time that you stick with it. And yet their attempt to do a kind of game as service version of the BioWare formula was Anthem. And that's, it's kind of, I don't know, I always feel like we're finding out what the business model should have been after the fact, like a little bit too often nowadays.
Yeah, someone else is saying that this kind of thing probably would have saved Telltale.
Yeah, probably.
That's, even if they didn't have like a single long-running series that went for years and years, I mean, they likely would, but also, even when one of their series ends, that there's going to be another one from a completely different IP that will have a similar format.
Right. I wonder if it would have, so the interesting question is, would it have saved Telltale? I keep not being able to say that. Or, more specifically, would it have saved them from the position they ended up in, which is making too many things at once for too many different parties?
Yeah.
Because would that pressure have still existed? Or maybe one of the benefits of a subs model is if you have one thing that keeps people resubscribing, you're actually actively disincentivized from diluting your own resources and making a second thing that's bad, or a second thing that makes the first thing worse. Like, I have pretty strong opinions about Benioff and Weiss, but midway through Game of Thrones, there wasn't necessarily a lot of pressure from HBO, like, make another one now, make two at once so we can charge for two of them, because that's not how it works.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a pretty good argument that Telltale was just really badly managed, and they would have been really badly managed even with a whole load of other financial options available to them. But yeah, it was interesting. So I've subscribed to Apple Arcade. I have an iPad, and the psychological effect of like going through those 60 games and just knowing I have all these and that's it. None of them will ask for more money from me. I installed like 17 things just immediately. And I installed loads of things that I know I wouldn't have installed. Not only would I not have bought these games if I'd seen them in a store, but even if they were free in the store, I wouldn't have installed them. But the fact that they're part of this thing, it's kind of a recommendation. It's the benefit of curation is they've been chosen for some kind of reason. All of the stuff I do know already from Apple Arcade that's in there is really cool stuff. Like What the Golf, which is, at every event I've, been at for the last, 2 or 3 years, What the Golf has been shown and has been a huge crowd pleaser and is just immediately funny and cool. And Overland, which I'll talk about later, which is, absolutely gorgeous, strategy game. And there's so much good stuff in there that when the stuff I haven't heard of, I'm like, oh, I'll give that a shot. There must be some reason it's in amongst all this great stuff. And yeah, so it will make people much more interested in trying these things. And actually I was listening to, the Dialogue Box, Gwen Frey's podcast. And, I think it was Chris Slight, her co-host, her usual co-host, was saying that he played Outer Wilds just because it was on Xbox Game Pass. Like he would never have bought that game. It just didn't seem like his kind of thing. And then because it was included, he tried it and absolutely loved it. So there's a lot of scope for stuff to get attention and get love that otherwise won't through this system.
And I think ultimately it is provided that the games are provided at a good rate and the games continue to be good. And with those caveats, it is a more kind of player friendly system than a lot of the alternatives. It takes a lot of the pain away. It takes a lot of the expense away of playing a lot of interesting games. But that is, and that is partly at the expense of, Apple, who you have to imagine are taking a loss on this and the initial term, depending on what the terms of those deals are. Like, obviously, if it's a massive success, it'll probably start recouping quite significantly, quite quickly. But, so they're investing, but also, I suppose it limits the potential for the App Store to act as a place where people discover completely new developers necessarily.
Yeah, that's true.
And I suppose what I'm kind of wondering is it's two things. What is the place where that will continue to happen? Is it itch? Where will new developers emerge? And secondly, do a sufficient mass, or is there an audience of sufficient size who are interested specifically in seeking out new work or new games or, innovative games to for that to be sustainable, like, or for it to sustain those people sufficiently that when they come to work on a project that could catch Apple's eye or Google's eye for one of these platforms, that it's sufficient. Like, there's, is this a stagnant pool is basically what I think trying to figure
actually,
out.
One thing that's going to be interesting is, that the thing we keep seeing time and time again from the games, world at large is that the ideas that absolutely explode come from nowhere. They come from the little teams that weren't expected, that you wouldn't have bet on until you saw what they were making. And even sometimes when you saw what they were making, you think, is this going to work? And then people play it and like, oh my God. Like, I mean, saw that with, PUBG and, obviously Dota originally and then Auto Chess more recently. And, that just keeps on happening. And even things like, I know Epic were quick to lock down Satisfactory. But I think that is, their eagerness for that game was, I think, informed very much by the success of Factorio, which I don't know if they would have locked down Factorio if that had not been on sale yet, and they didn't know that that game just made like $20 million, like immediately. Or not immediately, but they've never been on sale on Steam, which makes it really easy to calculate how much money they've made. So yeah, that's almost a reassuring thing, in that there will still be, I think, for all of the future that I can foresee, for as long as Steam lasts, there'll still be phenomenons on Steam that blow up out of nowhere, and the Steam audience will be sort of hungry for them. And to be honest, if you're going from your PUBG to your Auto Chess to whatever the next big thing is, I wonder if these subscription things even tempt you. Like, do you give a shit about Gears 5? Are you gonna actually get Xbox
Yeah, I think you're right that it's a mechanism that will support developers in the middle, basically. Like, not such a tremendous success that one title or one run of titles is enough to kind of keep things bouncing along. Like, I sort of wonder about like maybe a company like Clay. Yeah. Who maybe don't need this because
actually the Hot Lava is in Apple Arcade, which is
cool.
I think Clay published that game. I'm a little bit confused as to because that was being developed outside of them, and then they kind of brought it on board.
Yeah, that's like, I was actually thinking of playing that for this week, but I played other things instead. That's the sort of Counter-Strike jump map.
Yeah, it used to be called The Floor is Lava, and I think there was some reason they couldn't call it that, so now it's just Hot Lava. But yeah, that's the concept, is the floor is lava.
And basically that's it. You jump, don't touch floor. Floor is bad. The game. But yeah, like, but you see what I'm saying? Like, for a big indie like that, I wouldn't be surprised if these platforms were not mega appealing for anything other than maybe like a side project every now and then.
Yeah.
Like,
actually, I guess that's probably why Microsoft bought Double Fine, is to make Game Pass games, basically. Because I think it's I don't think you look at Double Fine and think, yes, we need to buy them for the massive profit that their next game will make when it's sold on Steam and various other places, but they're much more of a prestige kind of thing. I mean, that's going off just what they've said in their own documentaries and stuff about how they're forever struggling for funding for the next thing, because they just never seem to cross that mega hit threshold. They have a lot of games that are sort of successful, but not enough to fund the next ones.
So something like this might be a lifeline, because then it's about sort of the cost of running that studio, right?
Yeah.
Like the example I was thinking actually was, it was sort of maybe if something like this had, maybe there's actually a question. If something like this had been a possibility or been around when you were working on, for example, Morph Blade, do you reckon you might have considered it for something like this? Like, yeah,
I actually, did. I mean, that is what we did with Morph Blade, kind of, in that, it was a humble debut. And it was very much a case where I was already working on that just as a fun free project. And it just got to the point where I thought that actually this is probably good enough to sell for like $5. And then Humble I'd always have meetings with Humble where they'd tell me about their various, offerings, like Humble Debut and Humble Originals and the subscription thing and the Trove, which is where there's like an archive of games that you can get access to if you're a subscriber. And the Humble Debut is a thing where all Humble monthly subscribers get the game, but you're also allowed to sell it on other services, and actually immediately. I didn't have to wait or anything. So I went to them with Morph Blade for that, and they said yes. So they basically paid me a lump sum just to have it in just to give it to all Humble monthly subscribers, but without locking it down to that service. So that was really nice. I think they've stopped doing that particular deal. I think that now it's something different, but, it's perfect for that kind of thing where, and I think I didn't want to Basically, I think it's probably paid for itself, or I don't know. Morphblade. I don't want it to be a thing where like the only value to them is that it's a thing by the developers of Gunpoint or the designer of Gunpoint. And that's it. And it has no sort of value in itself. But I got figures on how many people redeemed it. And it was like over 100,000. And I thought there was a mistake, or I thought that it must mean that, there's just one key for the whole bundle and everyone redeems that. And this is how many people redeem the whole bundle. But it wasn't actually. That was for Morphblade. So a shitload of people played it. So it must have had some appeal.
Right. And then, but it's kind of impossible to reverse engineer what that might have meant for its hypothetical sales if it were in that bundle, because people.
It was great for me because I wasn't going to put any effort into marketing this. It was a side project. That was in the middle of Heat Signature. So I already had a main game I was working on. I wasn't willing to do that for Heat Signature. So it's perfect in that way because, and they don't care that I'm not going to especially market it, because for them it's just, it's kind of ridiculous because Humble Monthly, they do it a really weird way where you can't know what you're going to get at the time you pay for it. They only tell you what you've missed out on. You're only told what you're just too late for.
FOMO-based marketing system.
And so nobody subscribed to Humble Monthly on the to get Morphblade. Nobody did that intentionally. Nobody who subscribed to it knew they were getting Morphblade if they did.
We can only guarantee when we knew no one wanted this.
So it was a perfect thing. Well, I don't want to market it. You don't want to market it.
These people don't want to buy it.
Yeah. It's the ideal system.
like reverse psychology capitalism. I find that, so it feels like there is a structure there, which is that, a cool thing about this, and I appreciate we've been talking about it for a fair while, but just trying to figure out what its impact is. I do think it's potentially closes some avenues to success, but one of the things there is that those avenues have been so fraught with problems for so long that this may actually, and ultimately what you could argue is if the App Store, for example, just continued to be really difficult to find consistently good games. And if you're a parent, for example, kind of difficult to assess on a fly if a game is going to be exploitative or inappropriate, any of those reasons. One of the effects of that long term is it might ultimately kill that marketplace. And if that happens, then there is no, way in for anybody. So something like this, ultimately, if it helps more people find more games, may well be a good thing. But it'd be interesting as well if it provided a kind of financial incentive for the cool kinds of experiment games or side projects or kind of in between projects that studios, particularly indie studios, put out, right?
Yeah.
And the cool thing about it is I don't know what the lump sums involved are, but I would suspect that they're not necessarily going to be high enough to substantially change the strategy of AAA publishers, for example, right?
Yeah.
You probably have a team or a couple of teams, you already did, dedicated to creating smaller games for download services and things like that. But it's unlikely to be this is the future. We're just going to lap at Apple's teats. That's a confusing food. There was a food metaphor right there. And I went in a different direction. We're gonna take a bite. That's where I should have gone.
Yeah, that was right there.
That's what you do. Take a bite. Don't do that to a cow. Or if you do, it's called eating beef. Is it different? I don't know where I'm going with this. It's fine. And therefore maybe that space remains open for longer for indies and kind of smaller studios to just continually make a bit of money by generating cool stuff.
Yeah.
Without tremendous risk, really, apart from the risk of it not getting approved.
Should we talk about the Goose game?
We should talk about the Goose game. I feel like
this is the Goose in the room.
Yeah, it is. And he's here.
The special guest. Hark.
All of my objects are gone. And I really feel compelled to stand up and look for them now. I'm thinking about them a lot. We should talk about the Goose game because I feel like what we've managed to execute here is, a half hour of good old industry chat, before we talk about the Goose game, what has now come out. So we've both played Untitled Goose Game pretty much all the way to the end. I think you were at the end.
I've played my fill of it in that, I got to an end of sorts. But I don't want to say too much about what you're asked to do afterwards, but after I got a taste of what I was needed to do to sort of properly finish it, I was like, I think I'm good actually. I'll just watch.
I actually very much enjoyed that sequence, but what I was going to say is that we're not going to spoil Goose Game things, because actually it is, I think, quite a spoilable game.
Yeah.
Graham made this point in the chat we were having, and I agree. It's not spoilable in that there's a massive twist. You are not secretly in a coma,
Although.
Yeah, exactly. The goose, is not actually a kind of memory of a car accident or something like this. This is not what it's about.
It's a literal goose.
It's a goose. You're a goose. But it's so fun, full of like small interactions and little situations and things that it's nice to kind of discover it as you go. In fact, I was actually kind of disappointed, that, one kind of nice moment for me was actually even spoiled by the cover image of the review on PC Gamer. So it's one of those things where, I mean, I imagine it's been a week since it came out. I imagine a lot of people have played it now, because it's also not especially long. It's about 3 hours long.
Yeah. And it seems to have really caught on. Like, everyone is talking about it, and just a sufficiently good joke about the Goose Game will get you 18,000 retweets at the moment.
I saw an incredible, did you see there's an incredible tweet today where someone had done Goose Game, Fire Emblem Three Houses mashup art?
No, that sounds like absolute Twitter dynamite.
It was Fire Emblem Three Houses in the Goose Game art style, but where you're the goose. And it was things like, I can't believe how cruel this game is. And it was things like, Bernadetta, the extremely scared student, standing at the edge of a pier with the goose behind her, and like press X to honk. I would play the hell out of that game. I mean, well, this is the thing, right? When Untitled Goose Game was announced, everyone in the entire world immediately realized that it was the best idea for a game anyone had ever had. And it is out, and I don't think it's perfect or anything, but it's one of those things where it's exactly the game I was imagining the very first time they revealed it in that trailer, right? There was no sort of mystery, there's no mystery to what it is. We should explain what it is in case people don't know, but, so basically it's Hitman, and you're a goose. That's it.
It's, you have a to-do list of things to mildly annoy the people in the village. The one-line pitch, which is brilliant, is it's a lovely day in the village and you are a horrible goose. And the ways in which you are horrible is just a list of things like get the groundskeeper wet, or rake in the lake. There's a rake, put the rake in the lake.
And to do this, it's physics driven to like a fairly substantial degree. And as a goose, you can press X to honk. You can, run. You can flap your wings. This doesn't do much. You can just flap. And you can raise and lower your neck and bite things. That's it. Like, those are your goose verbs, basically. Yep.
And it's funny, actually, it is physicsy, but it's actually not, I mean, in a way, the proto one of this was Goat Simulator, right? Many, many years ago, where it's like, you play as this farmyard animal. But that was like embraced the jank, and it was, messy and all over the place, intentionally. And that was the comedy. There is plenty of comedy in it, and it is to do with the physics, but it's not the physics going wrong. It's not like, look at this dumb interaction. Actually, it's incredibly convincing. That's part of why it works so well, is like the goose really looks and moves like a goose, and, dragging something along as the goose, like both running away with like just a pair of spectacles in your beak is inherently funny. And also just like dragging a really heavy object that someone values a lot is really funny. And especially when they're chasing you, there's just so much inherent comedy to it. Like just like a goose running away with an object while someone chases them is always funny.
It's funny. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It works because it's in a sort of untextured 3D art style, lightly abstract, cartoony, but it's a great example of how sort of abstract art, but quite realistic animation and sort of very carefully sort of, handled animation, I think, particularly kind of makes it has a lot of verisimilitude. Like, you both get the emotional, like, even though the human characters don't really have faces and they don't really speak, they sort of burble at you. Everything's very, I'm trying to think, it communicates a lot of, sort of attitude and feeling with how everything is kind of received by everybody. Like the way the goose moves like a real goose, but because geese have a kind of threatening swagger, you have a kind of threatening swagger, and everything from your like creeping motion, or like when you're dragging something and your bum's wiggling as you're kind of getting away. Like,
I love some of the stuff they did because they actually have quite a hard job to communicate what the people are thinking and doing, because the people have a really difficult job as well, which is when you mess with their shit and you drag their stuff around, and you can do a lot of very destructive things, and very few of them are actually irreversible. Even sometimes when you break something that's not irreversible, someone will go and fix it. So the NPCs have to go around and fix this stuff, but at any time while they're fixing it, you can be breaking other stuff, you can be flapping at them, you can be honking at them, which surprises them, and they have so much they need to communicate about what they're doing, why they're doing it, what they're going to do next, and how they feel about it. And there's even stuff like there's different animations for I'm chasing the goose and I've lost them versus I know damn well where that goose is, but I can't get to it. Like they actually have a little like kind of, oh dang, kind of fist, not a fist pump, but like a fist swing.
When you're off on the pot, when you're back in the canal, like honking at them.
Or you're under a table in the pub and like, I know where the fucking goose is, but I can't do anything about it because under a table.
I think this is one of the things that, like, one of the things that's really profoundly lovely about it, particularly as a stealth game, because it's a sort of stealth puzzle game, is that you're right. Almost like we talk so much in this podcast about stealth games and immersive sims and the consequences of actions and lethal versus non-lethal and stuff like this. Goose Game's kind of an amazing answer to some of those issues. Not in a way that, well, actually, I think Hitman could benefit from this. I think I'd really enjoy playing almost any stealth game, Dishonored or Hitman or something, where everyone just wish you would shoo. They don't want to kill you. They don't want to catch you, because one of the problems in stealth games often is, being chased is exciting. Being caught is boring, because it's like, if you're caught meaningfully, it's like I'm back to the checkpoint or whatever and I'm just redoing it.
And most stealth games you can fight back, and that is usually just a bit janky and not very satisfying.
Or if it is satisfying, then you kind of wonder why you tried to sneak, because, you know, it becomes an action game. This is great because it doesn't matter what you're doing, if someone sees you, they're just going to shoo you away. And it can be annoying to be shooed. It can interrupt your goose plans or like, you know, set things off.
Whole goose to-do list.
Yeah, exactly. It can disrupt your kind of what you're aiming to do. But they won't even chase you very far. They just shoo you away and then back to normal. And I would love to know what Hitman played if it was like that. No matter how violent you were being, just like, you know, you're a huge ball.
Damn assassin got in here again. Get him out of here.
Exactly. Someone's chasing you with a broom. Like, get out, Agent 47. You're just jogging away, your pistol's out. Like, no, put that away. Give it back. Give it back.
Give back the poison. Come on, you got that from our cupboard. If it was your poison, fine.
Show me. What have you got?
A knife.
Like, and that is part of its mood, which is that, you know, you do some horrible things, like, to people, because you're a horrible goose, but everything is basically fixable, apart from that young boy's mind.
I'm not okay with what we did to the boy.
The boy who I was thinking of as Griffin McElroy the entire time, purely on the basis of resemblance, but like, like you can trip him over and then he drops his glasses and you can steal his glasses. And this is an example of the kind of thing you would do as a task. It's not really a spoiler, is make him wear the wrong glasses by stealing some glasses from a shop and putting them next to him while he's trying to find his glasses. Or when you really just there to play for your own kind of, you know, twisted kind of amusement, you can do what I've done, which take every pair of glasses in the world and throw them in the canal. That boy's blind now. And I'm a goose. Like that's, but the nice thing about it is the behavior of the NPCs, which is in some ways kind of feels a bit more dynamic than NPCs in a lot of stealth games, is to just wobble about with no great sense of urgency, resetting everything you've done. Yeah. And like if an NPC figures out that you've thrown all the glasses in the canal, they'll go and get them and take them back, and you can manipulate that. You can use that to distract people or to handle things. But it also means that like, puzzles and interactions and the sort of tasks you're asked to complete are constantly resetting themselves back to undone rather than failed. Yeah. Which is, and there are, you know, as you complete tasks, the state of the world changes slightly, which often open up a new area and that kind of thing. But it's never like, and this is part of the humor of the game, the things people do are always futile. Like, and this is kind of a nice, because it could be that you could make the bad version of this game, I think, where you mess with a particular person too many times and they leave, or they close up shop or something like that, and you can't get in there anymore.
They go get a gun and they shoot you.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas, one of its, I don't think this is one of its light running gags is eventually someone in an environment will make a no more geese sign.
Yep.
And this is of no effect. You can often steal the sign.
Yeah, who is that sign for? It's not like somebody brought this goose to you. The goose arrived of their own accord.
And there's there's this sort of light haplessness and also harmlessness to the thing is, you do cause quite a lot of property damage.
Yeah.
But there's
I actually get the impression that the goose would cause more damage if it could. It's really maxing out the damage it can do.
You can do some really pointless, spiteful things as well. And and then the other nice thing it does, which I think, actually shows that it could, even though it's this sort of 2 to 3 hour initial experience, I think you could expand it in a bunch of ways, because one thing it does is, all of the different humans in the cast have a different personality. And so while they'll have similar behaviors fundamentally, like fetch object, put object back, etc., how they feel about it and what their priorities are in a given moment are all different, I think. From how aggressively they will chase you, to what they like to chase you with, to whether they there's that child that everyone who has destroyed basically is afraid of you. And that's one of the reasons why it's very funny at first. You realize how horrifying that is. It's and so you honk, they run, and you can use this to manipulate them. Yeah. You can herd them, basically.
The thing you're saying about it sort of not escalating in the same way that other stealth games do. I remember them giving a talk at Fantastic Arcade, in which they showed a video that was one of the inspirations for the sort of, not the original starting point for the game, because that was, as we've probably seen, a photo of a goose. There's some screenshots of their chat log out there, from their company chat log from when they first conceived the game, where one of them just says, I think our next game should be about this. It's just a picture of a goose. They just list all the things they like about geese the most, including the whole animal is just 2 colors. But anyway, I think a more direct inspiration for the actual mechanics of what is a game about a goose was this video of a woman who's trying to sweep leaves out of a panda pen. And I think it's baby pandas. They're really tiny, and they love the broom, and they love the pan, and they love the leaves, and they love her, and they just roll into it, and they are endlessly scuppering her. She cannot do this job. They're just, for minutes and minutes at a time, they are undoing all her work, spreading the leaves around, rolling in them, and she's desperately trying to get all the leaves back in and undo what they're doing. And they said one of the things that's struggling about it is this never escalates. No matter how often they do this, she'll never actually do anything about this problem. She'll never kill the pandas or give up. She will always just keep on trying to do this thing, and they will always keep on trying to mess it up. And so this is a model for a stealth game where it doesn't get out of control. No matter how much you mess up, no matter how much you succeed, no one dies, nothing goes away. This whole setup is still there for you to play with. Yeah, right.
You can get into some sort of kind of frustratingly, not frustratingly, but sort of slightly mad scenarios. I've definitely been in a position where 5 different people were all looking for me at the same time. And I was under a trellis honking, and they're just hanging around, question marks over their head, society has broken down because no one really knows what to do anymore. But yeah, you're right. It doesn't end. That's the crucial thing. It just sort of, you fail lightly. Things don't go quite well, right? But the thing you were trying to achieve was not steal the nuclear codes before the bad man can blow up the moon or whatever. It was just, you were trying to steal this guy's slippers, and he saw you this time. So you just honk and run off. You scupper yourself. I decided that I really had to honk at the same time as I sprang this trap that I'd been very carefully laying for somebody. But honking ruined it. And I was I've ruined this for myself just because I didn't need to press honk, but I did because you just enjoy doing it. The flapping button, which doesn't really serve any purpose except to show how big your wings are.
The classic thing is after you complete a task, just honk at the person who's now annoyed at what you've just done. You just ruined their day, and just, while they're examining the damage and scratching their head, you just go honk. Just to underscore. Like, that was me. I did mean to do that. That wasn't an accident.
And there's also a lot of sort of like quite analogous where the physics comes in, sort of forgiveness in its systems as well. Like if you steal something from someone and run away and they take it off you, you can often just walk up behind them and snatch it back out of their hands and run away again.
Yeah.
And like, you know, there's this sort of, it seems very, very tiring to be everyone else in the world.
Yes.
And you are completely at liberty, which is actually kind of different to how a lot of stealth games feel, where you are always on edge all the time because everything's very high stakes and everyone else is at relative rest.
Yeah.
Like, you are creating anxiety for everyone else in the world because you're this chaos element, basically.
I really liked the neighbors section. Where you have access to two different people's gardens. They are neighbors. It's apparent from their garden and from kind of what they're doing that they're very different people, and they have a kind of pre-existing relationship with each other. And you get to kind of mess with that as well as, you know, a lot of the things you do, they know full well a Goose did it. But other things you can kind of get them pissed off at each other. And that it's kind of an interesting space as well, where the ways to get between the gardens are one way. So there's a way to get from garden A to garden B, but that's different to the way you get from garden B to garden A. And just if you take something from one garden, put it in another, that neighbor will take it and throw it over the fence. So they won't, you know, usually people diligently put things back exactly where they were, but when it's like their neighbor's shit, like, I'm not going to put that back in her garden. I'm just going to hurl it over the fence. It just lands wherever it lands.
Yeah. I love the way that people sort of, they're really annoyed that you're there, but they really don't, like, I think we've said this, but they won't go beyond a certain point to express that. Like, if you've taken something, they'll probably chase you for a bit. But if you're just looking at them, they just look at you. Like, there's one of the things I think is really crucial about the animation is, even though it's not, you know, the characters aren't super detailed or anything, you know, people heads turn when you're, you know, walking around. They track you kind of relatively, realistically. And that, again, is a sort of interesting inversion of how stealth games feel, because it's like, you don't give a shit about their sight cones, really. Like, sometimes you got to wait till they're elsewhere to kind of pull something off. But that's one of the other things that lends it its character, is you don't give a shit if they see what you do. You just need to get away with it.
Yeah.
Like, and sometimes you need to prevent them from undoing it for enough time for you to achieve whatever your mad goal is. But like, you know, it's like, and because it's really funny, and because I don't know if you're necessarily like an underdog in that world, because you apparently are the master of it. Like, no one can meaningfully stop you from ruining everything. But because of how it's, you know, how you're positioned, it feels fun to be seen doing everything you're doing. It's not a failure of the theme or the fantasy. It actually is the theme, is to be like, honk, I've done this, and run away. Like, whereas if, you know, other games that have toyed with the idea of like, you're a stealth villain, like there was the Goblin one, whose name I've forgotten.
Yeah, I know which one you mean.
And none of them sort of embrace the idea that if, you know, because this is a game where you're a stealth villain, that is kind of what it is, but it also embraces the idea that it's, you don't give a shit about being seen or anything like that. You just need to get away with stuff.
If you completed your objectives without anyone seeing you, you'd feel sort of empty about it. Like, but nobody saw what a dick I was. Come on.
Yeah,
What's the point?
Occasionally, and then the exceptions to that are when there are a few examples, and I won't spoil them, but a few examples of times where you can, swap something around or do something so that the person doesn't realize a Goose did this for some reason. The other thing I was going to point out is, so after that initial 3 hours-ish sort of runtime, it does kind of let you back into the world with an expanded set of stuff to do. And this includes some even more dickish things you can do to people, including that child. Or you could have done them initially anyway, but it's like, do this, now do this. Now lock him in here. Like, but there's also things that are just really playful, and because the environment's really full of little interactions, and often you've got to get, you know, buy yourself time to do some weird, pointless little show of Goose agency. But it's a testament to how many weird little things there are that you can do in the environment that don't have any point, like, putting umbrellas up. And then people having to put them down, and then you can sneak up behind them and put their umbrella up again, and then they put it down, and you sneak up behind them and honk and put it up again. And you just keep doing that for 10 minutes because it's fun. Like,
I found myself with the neighbors, so a lot of things, after you've done them, they're checked off your list, and I'd put the guy's slippers in the fountain. I think I put one in the fountain. He doesn't actually mind. He'll get them back from there, but I eventually got the slippers away from him. You have to steal both of his slippers, and so you can only really do it one at a time. So after you steal the first one, you have to make sure you can't get it back while you're trying to steal the second one. You kind of need them to go back to a relaxed state with only one slipper. And once I stole the second slipper and took it away from him, and he was resigned to being barefoot, that's your goal. You've got to get in barefoot. That's checked off your list now. And then I picked up the slippers and took them back to him and put them in his sight range so that he would pick them up and put them back on his feet. Just to kind of say, I didn't actually want to leave you permanently barefoot. I was just having a bit of fun.
There's one character later on who I genuinely felt bad for, because it's a character who will do a range of activities based on what's around them. And I took away everything that gave this character joy. I should point out, I still don't really weirdly feel guilty about rendering that child blind, but this one really bothered me because it's a character who will interact with a few different things, and if not, maybe sit down and play the harmonica and stuff. And I stole everything and dropped it in the canal. And it got to this point where he would sort of stand up, look to do one thing, go and then look, and then turn the other way and go, and you can tell one of the ways it communicates to you what a character might be doing next is they'll think about the object that they're going to go find, or think about an object that they've seen that shouldn't be where it is. Yeah. And so they'll go and do it. And he was constantly thinking about objects that he couldn't get and going
remembering a happier time.
Yeah, remembering when he owned possessions before the redistribution goose.
Would one of those things be his stool?
I didn't manage to get rid of the stool, no, so he could sit down. I should have done that. But I did stop bringing things back because I genuinely was I've got to move on from here, and you're not my least favorite person in this environment, so you can have this back.
Fucking burly man, though.
Burly man. Fuck burly man. Anyway, I don't I do want to stick by what I said, not completely give away certain situations and things, but
potential episode title there.
Yeah. And and on that note, I think people on Discord already pointed this out, but this is a game with absolutely off the chain pip energy. And I would say I wanted to add as a personal note, I feel very profoundly seen by it because, people have, someone was joking that, maybe the podcast is late this week because Pip was busy doing mocap for the Goose, etc. No, I'm every other character in that game. This is my life.
Have you got your fist swinging in frustration animation?
Yeah, all it needs is a sequence where, I don't know, you're in a house or something, and there's a man with a beard just very, very, very patiently painting a goblin. And then
honk.
And he's ruined that goblin and he puts it down. And he gets a different one. He starts doing that. And then you're running off to the canal with his second edition copy of Codex Chaos Space Marines. Ooh, it's in the canal. Splash.
Do you have separate animations for, I don't know where Pip is, and I do know where Pip is, but I can't get to it?
Yeah, pretty much. Well, and I have a very specific animation for where is Pip? I can't hear her and I can't see her. And then honk, it happens again. I think my phone just buzzed, and that's probably Pip because she can always tell. We should probably check in with her next time she's around I don't think she's finished it yet. So
right.
There's that, but I suspect game will recognize game in this really specific regard.
Untitled game will recognize untitled game.
I think if maybe this is a bit of putting you on the spot, if they were to title it, anything spring to mind?
Well, earlier on in our discussion, the title, non-metaphorical goose game sprung to mind. But just to be clear, this is not a metaphor for anything. You just are a goose.
I was thinking duck the police.
That's pretty good. I mean, some variation on loose goose, goose on the loose. There's some decent word sounds there, but it's never going to beat Untitled Goose Game.
No, it isn't. And it's not. Because this is. It's good though. I definitely have enjoyed my, 4 hours of honking.
Yep.
I hope they do more.
I'm glad I didn't have to review it because I saw its Metacritic average is something like 77%, which is much lower than I was expecting. And then I haven't read any reviews, but on further reflection, just looking at individual review scores and thinking, actually, the sort of low 80s review is it's not wrong. It's a 10 out of 10 concept and they've executed on it brilliantly. But it probably isn't my game of the year or anything. It's no Outer Wilds in that sense.
Right. It's not, I mean, it's the thing is it's fundamental. It's a perfect example of absolutely nailing the feel and the tone and the look of a relatively straightforward experience. Like, we can talk about, like, I am really amused by all the things it does to the stealth genre that are, like, quietly, like, not revolutionary, but, like, it solves so many problems.
Yeah.
But the reason it's not, like, wow, best stealth game of the year or something like that is because the solutions only work if you're a goose. Like, they can't really add this kind of no failure kind of thing to Dishonored or something, because that's a game about assassinating people, and they can't have someone walk along and go like, get up. Like, you know what I mean? But I kind of want to play more stealth games that work like this, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's likely that I don't know how you, well, it's such a perfect marriage of theme and mechanics in that regard that I don't know how you achieve this with like any other theme.
Yeah.
Like,
you could switch in a different animal probably, but that's about it.
Right. Yeah. Like, but the thing is as well that like, its animal vocabulary is basically that you're small, you can grab things, and you can hustle. And you can make a noise. And, you know, really. And geese are just funny. Honking is funny. Honking is one of the funnier sounds.
Yep.
You know, like, the entire game is really built around partly a picture of a goose and also just the press X to honk prompt, you know?
Yep.
Like, it's a good, but that's probably the most sort of, I mean, it is very aware of games generally, but that's its probably most sort of explicit, you know, nod to the things it's not parodying, but sort of existing in deliberate contrast to.
Yeah. Yeah. My thought about, like, I'm glad that I don't have to review it, was you sort of, in this situation, a reviewer, you sort of feel like you got to be the spoil sport, because your low 80s review is sort of out of whack with the zeitgeist of everyone's going wild for this thing. If I can love it, they're talking about it all the time, and I'm there with them. You know, I feel that way too. And then if you sit me down and say like, okay, we're paying you money to say exactly how good this game is, I'm like, I've probably got to face some harsh realities where it's still really, really good, but it's probably not 10 out of 10.
Yeah. And it's interesting not to probably keep banging on about it, but it's interesting why, because I think the thing that would make it 10 out of 10 is if it had a slightly greater degree of consequence for your actions, right? I think it's going to be I think one of the things that's really cool about it is I think it's an incredible introduction to playing stealth games like you do for people who normally just sort of do everything normally and don't try and break things and don't see what happens if you take something from this place and move it over here.
Yeah.
Like it practically trains you to go like, and then its bonus objectives are basically all about like, okay, you've learned how the logic of this location, this location works. Now break them both using elements from each other and things like that.
Yeah, it's kind of true actually, because you have to experiment to find out how to do some of these stuff. There's a bunch of things on your to-do list where there is no way to get from what they're asking you to do to what you actually need to do just logically. You need to just mess around and try some stuff and then realize, oh, when I mess with this happens, and that could be useful. But it's not logical enough that you could just know to do that thing from the to-do list alone. Obviously I can't say what specific puzzles I'm thinking of because it would spoil them, but, and like Hitman is also, you know, said at the start, this is like Hitman, and it is, they're both sort of, like clockwork doll houses kind of things where there's these certain, routines going on and interactions set up for you. And when you mess with them, you can see how that, has a knock-on effect. And Hitman is really successful, but I don't think it would, appeal to everyone that a Goose Game does, because Goose Game, you feel encouraged to experiment because there are no consequences, because you know you're not going to be shot for doing it. And even when being shot isn't a huge penalty, I mean, it can be in Hitman. But there are games where, you know, actually getting caught is not that big a deal. You just load a save that was, extremely recent and you haven't lost much, but it's just unpleasant. It's just like, ow, that's a big, you fucked up moment. Whereas in Goose Game, when you get caught doing something that doesn't work out, it's
just flat.
So low. And that just reinforces this feeling of like, I'll just try some stuff. I'll just try this. I'll try that. And let's try this. And yeah, that leads to interesting stuff.
I think the thing that would make it an incredible game is if there was just even greater kind of systemic depth underneath that. But it's hard for them to add that without potentially creating the potential for scenarios that can't be undone.
Yeah.
Right. Like, you've drowned the boy. Or like,
wow. The game says.
Or these neighbors are in love now, or whatever it is. You know what I mean?
Actually, the neighbors thing really made me kind of want to see like the light side version of this game. Like, obviously the dark side version is the
Paragon
the
Goose.
correct one. But yeah, Paragon Goose, where you have to get the two neighbors to like reconcile and actually realize like deep down they actually kind of love each other.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a terrible day in the village and you're a lovely goose.
Yes. Man, that would be legitimately.
That's the expansion pack, I think. Like Goose fix, or like, what would, if the goose is awful and breaks everything, what is the animal that comes along and fixes everything? Just a nice dog? Like, yeah, that's what it needs. Like an antagonist sort of figure to, like I don't know, not a swan, they're too posh. No, the swan would be the kind of lethal playthrough.
You break everybody's arms or whatever it is they can do.
Never been especially clear to me how they do that.
No, it's a really specific thing. Like it's like, that's their one superpower. They can't do any other kind of injury. It's just your arms. And you have to be kind of bending down a bit because otherwise they can't reach them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Alternatively, I would like to, play, I think, you know, there'd be some systems to figure out, but you could probably drop the Goose from Untitled Goose Game into like any new Hitman level and it would be fun, you know? Like, and with the same objectives, kill people. Like, you know, one of the things in its favor is a limited verb set, and I'd love to be challenged like, okay, you're in, what's the Italy level from Hitman? Sapienza. You're in Sapienza. Kill this guy. You're a goose.
I mean, people would let you in places that they wouldn't let 47.
Right, yeah, exactly.
And there's usually some way of killing the target that involves a very subtle interaction, like just peck this cable that's supporting this chandelier, or knock this bottle into this bowl.
Yeah. Oh, we should mention the bottles. You can get your beak in a bottle and then when you honk,
yes.
It's a resonant honk. You can also, this is a subtle one.
It's a resonant honk.
You can honk into the well and it echoes back at you. So you can just stand there honking at yourself. It's good. You can pick up a little, baby's dummy and be a baby for a bit, I guess. It's, yeah, it's great.
Yep.
Should we talk about Overland?
Yeah, I've got to get it off my chest. I've been full of Overland opinions all week, and so this is a game I've been looking forward to for a long time, and I know roughly how long because I remember testing it and giving feedback, and I was curious about how long ago that was. It was 4 years ago that I played an early version, gave some feedback, and then I talked about it on the podcast 4 years ago. And I listened back to the bit where I talked about it to remind myself of what I thought at the time. Because one of the things that struck me playing in the release version is it's very similar. I mean, it's way more polished and it looks absolutely gorgeous. But the main problem I have with it is the one I remembered saying at the time 4 years ago, which is that everything you do feels like the wrong thing to have done. It's constantly sort of tutting at you and saying, oh, shouldn't have done that, shouldn't have done that, shouldn't have done that. And I remembered saying that at the time. And then I went back and listened to the podcast, and on the podcast I say, this has been in development for a while. Like, oh boy, you have no idea. So it's by Finji, who are, amongst others, Adam and Becca Saltzman, and Heather Penn does the art. The art is absolutely fantastic. And, it was 4 years ago as well. And, it's only got better. And the whole game is like just aesthetically perfect now. Like it's, so beautifully rendered, and all the sort of like the font choices and the lighting choices are amazing. And we have to say it's been a big influence on Tactical Breach Wizards visually. I know it's one of John Roberts' favorite, sort of reference points, and, he absolutely loves the art style too. The game itself, it's almost a problem how good the art is, because it looks so lovely, and it's got this, if you haven't seen it, it's got this sort of diorama style where every level is just a square chunk of land, that as if it's been sort of cut out of the land, and in fact more as if it's like a resin diorama that someone built, for a sort of a recreation. And which gives us this very kind of self-contained, neat, pleasing look that looks very accessible and inviting. And actually that is present in the game design in some ways as well, where the grid squares are enormous. So a car fits in one grid square, and so does a single person. So it's almost abstract in that way, where it kind of plays with scale to make that work. Each turn, your people, it's a survival game set in a post-apocalypse, and you have a team of survivors starting with 2. And each of your people only has 2 action points, and 1 action point can move you 1 tile, which is very different to something like XCOM or Into the Breach, where, a move, in both those games actually will take you sort of 4 to 6 tiles and, or even longer in XCOM, and doesn't take up an action point usually. In this game, it's much smaller scale in that sense, and it has this very, it's so weird. It feels like, it's almost as if, and this isn't true because I followed it through development, but it's almost as if for the first half of development, they wanted it to be incredibly hardcore and punishing. And then for the next half of the development, they wanted it to be incredibly accessible and simple. And it, on one level, it makes perfect sense for Apple Arcade, which is what it launched as part of. But it's also on Steam and I think Switch and PS4, although not in Europe on PS4 for some reason that I don't understand. But anyway, it's so inviting, and then you play it and it just says fuck you at every turn. It's so harsh. It is, I'll say up front, it's a post-apocalyptic game, and it's trying to make the post-apocalypse feel bleak and desolate and hopeless. It is a game where everything you do has a cost. Everything you do, like I say, feels like a mistake, because the game is constantly telling you, well, here's why you shouldn't have done that. Here's the problem with what you just did. And that's kind of true no matter what you do. And so it ties into the survival theme. On some level, I sort of respect the mood they're going for, or at least I respect that that these mechanics are designed with intent to conjure that feeling. But that's a horrible feeling. It's really horrible to feel like every move you make is wrong. Everything is just getting worse forever. There's no hope of survival, and you're just screwed. And one of the core mechanics that gives you that feeling is that the enemies are aliens that come up from the ground. It is, I sort of feel for them. I don't know how they felt when Into the Breach arrived, because Into the Breach is also a game that has a diorama type look with a very similar size grid. I couldn't say off the top of my head what Overland is, but Into the Breach is 8x8 and it feels like very similar. And also about insectoid aliens that burrow up from the ground rather than arriving from space. And Overland was out there first, at least.
They're very different games otherwise.
Yeah, they are. And in fact, Overland is almost like the anti Into the Breach. Into the Breach is all about clarity, and it's all about telling you, here's what's going to happen, here's the problem you're facing, here's all the information you could possibly need to solve it, and the challenge is just solve it. Overland, yes. And Overland is, I'm not telling you anything. You can move 2 tiles, and that's all you get to know. And these aliens that pop up from the ground, every time, if you attack them, that makes noise. And every noise you make summons another alien. And so even if you kill them in one blow, that blow made enough noise to summon one more alien. So you haven't reduced the number of aliens that you're going to have to deal with. That alien that's summoned is going to take a couple of turns to unburrow. You'll see it pop up as like a little mark in the ground, and then next turn it'll be, nearly out, and then the turn after it comes out. I think it's 2 turns. But you've only delayed the problem. You don't ever get to just clear the map and make the place safe. And that is true just everywhere you go. Every single area you arrive in already has some aliens in it. And if you take those aliens out, you're only summoning more aliens by doing that. And, if you hit them with a pipe, so if you hit them with a stick, which is probably the first weapon you're going to find, there's just sticks lying around. If you don't have you start with no weapon, and you can't even attack without a weapon. You can't do any damage at all. You're literally helpless. So if you see a stick, you pick up the stick, and if you hit an alien with a stick, it makes noise that summons another alien, and it half breaks the stick. The next hit breaks the stick. Now you have no stick and you can't attack anybody at all. So it's constantly telling you, this is wrong, don't do this, this is bad, what you just did, here's the price you're going to pay for that. And so then you think, okay, well maybe I don't attack the aliens, or I try not to. But more aliens do show up, because even just like opening a bin will make enough noise to summon an alien. Like everything you do makes noise. It's constantly saying, no, that made noise. Oh, you're summoning more aliens. It's getting worse. It's getting worse. It's getting worse. And if you're not killing the aliens that are already there and more aliens are showing up, it's getting worse. And there's this constant time pressure, this constant, deterioration of your situation. Everything's getting more and more desperate all the time. And, one of the sort of core things you're dealing with is you have a car and you're trying to keep it fueled. You're constantly running out of fuel, and you need to find fuel everywhere you go. You're sometimes offered, after you complete a map, you go to after you complete a level, you go to a map, which then you choose whether you want to go to like a petrol station next or a place where you've heard there's some supplies or...
It must be a bit of Oregon Trail. Is that a fair comparison?
I've never played that, but it definitely feels like FTL in terms of like you have 2 to 4 options at any given juncture and you just choose one of those and then it takes you to a map.
Yeah.
Right. It takes you to a level. This is the curse of game design terminology. And so if you're going to a fuel station, like I wish going to that map and like, level. I don't know why I can't stop saying map. Going there was sort of like, if you went to like a fuel node in FTL, it would be, oh, there's pirates there and you got to fight the pirates, and then you fight the pirates and you win and you get like 17 fuel. You get a big fucking cache of fuel and you solved your fuel problem. For the next few nodes, you don't need to worry about fuel because you just stocked up on fuel and you're doing great. And you have that feeling of, yes, I'm doing great. Overland, you get to a fuel station and there's 2 fuel cans in front of you, but it'll take you 3 turns to move far enough to pick them up. When you get there, it's 1 fuel, and you spent 4 fuel to get here. and even then, picking up the fuel can doesn't give you 1 fuel. You've just put it in your hand. And to put it in your hand, you've got to drop your weapon. So now you're defenseless. You cannot fight anything. And then you've got to walk all the way back to your car. And when you walk all the way back to your car, you still don't have the fuel. You have to spend an action pouring it into the tank. And that's true for every fuel can you pick up. And all the time this is happening, the situation is getting worse and worse. More and more aliens are arriving. If you find if you've actually gone to a literal gas station, you can get to the gas pump, and then when you get there, you can siphon it. That costs an action and gets you 1 fuel. And at first, so the game is very difficult. It's also artificially difficult in that a lot of things seem worse than they are, and it doesn't explain itself very well. And then on top of that, there's the feeling of bleakness. So it has like 4 different sort of oppressiveness problems that each one individually would be fine if it was the only one, but they combine to give this sense of just, oh my God, how am I ever going to play this game or get anywhere or do anything? And so when I played it early on, I'd get to a gas pump and I'd siphon it until it fucking hell, it cost me a whole action and I got 1 fuel from it. That's it. That's all I get from the gas pump. And then like 7 runs in, I realize, oh no, after you siphon a gas pump, you can siphon it again. You spend another action to siphon it again and that gets you more gas. And there'll be like 6 gas in it or something. And so if you can hang around long enough to spend 6 actions and siphon it all out, you have got a significant amount of gas. And so it's easier than I thought it was. Like that is a thing where now I actually can get 6 gas is still not a great amount of fuel. That gets you like 2 stops maybe, and then, you're out again. And when you're out, you're just fucked. It's basically campaign over. And so it's like, now it's a little bit easier, but it's still like so many actions and you desperately, if you only have 2 people and this one can't attack anybody because they're having to do the gas thing, and the other one has a weapon that breaks in 2 hits and there's like 7 enemies and 5 more get summoned while this is happening. It's always so bleak and so depressing. But the whole time it looks gorgeous and it is sort of satisfying that everything has this sort of clean single function, like a stick can hit something twice. You can do 2 hits with it and then it's gone. The game has no damage values. It never tells you anything's hit points or the damage value on anything. And it's part of an attempt to design the game so that they don't need to do that, but they sort of do. Because there are things with 3 hit points, but it doesn't tell you it has 3 hit points. You're just supposed to notice that it has 3 heads. And that almost works, but then there's other stuff where it's just like, I just need to know what this fucking enemy does. I'm going to lose my whole campaign because I don't know what this enemy does, and it took me an hour to get here. And of course it's permadeath, and it's, almost anything that goes wrong is the end of your campaign. And that's another, like, compounds the issue of like not understanding the rules, because things like I still don't understand this, but when you enter a car, you drop any fuel tank you're carrying. Normally a character only has 1 inventory slot, which is crazy because it means if you have a weapon, you have to put it down before you do anything. And if you're going to scavenging, like if you want to go and investigate like a car and see what's in it, or like a dumpster or something and see what's inside, you kind of need to take your weapon with you to fight off anything that attacks you while you're there. Otherwise you'll just get into a situation where you can't do what you came there to do without being attacked. And once you're attacked, you're basically dead. So you bring your weapon with it. And then if you find something good in that dumpster or whatever, you have to leave your weapon there to take it. Like, you can't take both back with you unless you want to do 2 trips, which is not viable because of the endless onslaught of enemies. And that's crazy. But there is something. So if normally you have your one thing in your one inventory slot and you get in a car, the car also has one inventory slot, by the way. It's a fucking car and it can carry 1 bottle. That's its maximum inventory.
So it has the same inventory as a Goose.
Yes. And if you have a bottle and you get in a car, you get to keep your bottle. You're in the car, you still have the bottle. If there's a med kit in the car, that's its one inventory slot. You got your one inventory slot, that's fine. Unless you're carrying a fuel tank, in which case there's a special rule that makes you drop the fuel tank before you get in. But it costs an action to get into the car. So if you didn't know that was going to happen, now you've wasted your action. You don't have the fuel tank, it's on the ground. You're going to spend another action getting out of the car. Picking it up doesn't cost an action, which is nice, but then getting back in the car will cost you another action. So that's an entire turn. And if you got in a car with a fuel tank, I guarantee it was because you don't have time to fill the car up with the fuel tank. Like, that costs an action. You can't afford an action in the situation. You just need to get the fuck out of there, and you don't want to lose the fuel, so you're trying to take it with you. But there's a special rule that you drop it that they don't tell you about, and that just ends your campaign. The first time that happens that is over now. We cannot do it because the next hit sets fire to the car. And once there's no car, we are completely fucked. And then another bizarre thing that I can't understand is every single level you go to has these enemies that are constantly spawning and is oppressive and depressing and pressuring and all these negative things that you don't have time to fuck around. You don't have time to fill up your car with the stuff that you brought in. But between them, when you're looking at that map and choosing which level to go to next, I'm getting my terminology really down here. You're at a campfire and it's a rest thing, and your people talk to each other, and there's this dynamic sort of semi-generated conversation. And it's shown as a moment of rest, but you can't use that time to take a fuel tank and fill the car up with it. You can't, if one of your people is injured and you have a med kit, you can't use it on them. There's no opportunity to do anything at that point. You have to then go to a danger zone, and in the danger zone, both get out of the car, pass the med kit to one who isn't injured, use the med kit on that person, and then that heals them. But you have to do that while you're being attacked, even though, like, narratively, there are these moments of safety and respite where you would be able to do that. So I almost gave up on it on my first campaign because I was just like, this is so horrible. It just feels so depressing to play, half intentionally and half not intentionally. But I remembered that when I played it before, I did it looks gorgeous, so I just want to see more of it. And I want to get somewhere with it. And I remembered that when I played it before, that there being stories, it would generate stories, because you will encounter other people along the road, and sometimes you can invite them to your team and sometimes you can't. And if you can't, they are also scavenging. So they're taking things that you're trying to take as well. Someone else is gathering fuel on the same map you're trying to gather fuel. And like I say,
that's a cool idea.
It is so limited that you're honestly kind of like, I think we should kill this guy. I think, or at the very least, put him between us and the aliens and not help if he gets attacked. Because it's got a kind of, I definitely have a kind of scavenger's code where, like, if they're in danger, let's just let it happen. And then afterwards, let's see if we can get to that body and take that fuel. And I did have a nice moment where there was somebody, I got to one of these maps, and we were a team of like 2 people with a dog with us, and I thought we were a super charming team. And so we went up to try and invite her, and she didn't want to join. And we're like, oh, come on, we got a dog. You don't want to hang out with a dog? You're alone in the post-apocalypse. So I was kind of like, well, fine. See how you do on your own. And she died. And then I went over to loot her body and get the fuel that she'd gathered. I was basically thinking, score, this is great. This person I didn't like, who was also interfering with our plans, is now dead. I get to take her stuff, and it wasn't technically my fault. I went over to her body, and then when I got close, I got the option to revive her. Yeah, all right, let's try that. And then after I revived her, she said, hey, can I come with you? Oh, now you want it. And actually, yeah, we did recruit her, and she became part of the team. So that was a nice little moment. And then it finally did, like, after many campaigns, I finally got like a proper story out of it, where I had not been able to go to any trading outposts because they always seem to cost like 5 fuel, and like you can only ever have 10 fuel. That's the most you can ever have. And the most I've had in practice is usually like 7. And if you have 7 fuel, spending 5 to get a trading outpost that might not have any fuel is almost suicide. So it almost never happened. And then one time I had loads and loads of fuel, and it was a bit closer, so it didn't cost as much fuel to go there. And I went there. I'd never been to a trading app. I just didn't know how it worked. Didn't know is there a currency or what? And we pull up. I think these are randomly generated to some extent. I assume they are, because we pulled up and there's a table with 4 really good items on it. And then in the distance, there's a campfire with a man and his dog there. And we get out and we, like, just by getting out of the car, I'm already standing next to the table with all the good stuff on it. And the guy says, "Hey, let's do this right," or something to that effect. And I'm just looking at the stuff and I am like, as I say, picking stuff up costs 0 actions. And I'm right next to my car. I could just take all of this stuff.
But you can only carry one thing, right?
Yeah, but passing items to other people and to your car is also free. So you can basically chain gang it. And that's another thing where that one, I guess, it's not explained, but it's semi-logical once you learn the basics. Once you know picking stuff up and transferring stuff is free, and you know that, moving isn't, and all this other stuff, you can sort of create, if you have 3 people, then you can create a pretty good chain gang from a fuel source to your car and just pass things down.
Can a dog be part of that?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, dogs can carry things in their mouths. They can't really, the first 2 dogs I found were both aggressive, which is a trait that means they can attack enemies as well. And that's actually really good because they don't need to use an item to do that. So they're not breaking their weapon. They can always attack.
Dog breaks after 2 attacks.
God, that would be heartbreking.
But you said it's a game where everything's a bad idea.
It's not even his teeth that break. Just the whole dog just snaps in half. The dog is used up now. No, luckily the dogs are renewable resources. But then, I thought that was a standard feature of dogs, but it turns out that's a special trait the first 2 I found had, and all the dogs I've found since cannot attack at all.
Useless idiots, basically.
Even if you give them a stick, they can't attack with a stick. I think they can attack with a knife if you give them a knife, but I've never been able to pull that off. Anyway, we put up to this table and I could just take all the stuff. And I was like, man, I don't even know what this stuff costs, but I'm pretty sure we can't afford any of it. We don't really have much to trade anyway. I would be crazy not to just steal all of this. There's an axe. I've never even seen an axe before. It turns out to be a weapon that doesn't degrade and that kills things, pretty well. I think it's not too noisy. There was a backpack, which gives you an extra inventory slot.
Holy
fucking
shit.
Huge, I know.
That's a car's worth of space.
It's a goose's worth of space. It's like I've got a whole other goose with me.
The Paragon Goose. It's here.
And then a roof rack. Man, a roof rack is fucking gold dust in this place.
The backpack of cars.
Yes. It's like there's a whole other goose in my car. And something else, I can't remember what it was, but it was just it was amazing stuff. And we were just I'm just going to take all of this because you put me in a survival situation. You've successfully created an atmosphere of desperation and pressure and despair. There's almost no decision to make here. Why would I ever cooperate or be nice? It's always life or death. I absolutely need the stuff. I'm taking it and I'm leaving. And so I took it all and I left. And yeah, we just drove off and there were, the guy kind of yelled at us. If we'd stuck around for multiple turns, I'm sure him and his dog would have come over and attacked us. But just the way that it was laid out was all the goods right next to us, them miles away. It was too good to be true. So we took everything and left. And that campaign started to go really well. I've got an axe now. It's a reliable weapon. 2 of my people now have multiple inventory slots. And at the campfire, we muttered something about maybe we shouldn't have done that to them. But it was fine. And at the end of each sector, each sort of, you're trying to cross America and each kind of zone.
Yeah, it does sound like Oregon Trail, which is one side of, or, more recently Oregon Trail, which was the zombie apocalypse version of this.
In Oregon Trail, are you starting in Oregon or leaving Oregon?
You're trying to get to Oregon.
Okay, yeah. Because this also goes west to east and.
Right, so Oregon Trail goes east to west.
Oh.
Because it's as in you're trying to get to Oregon from,
Wait, what did I say?
You said west to east.
No, I'm wrong. If you start on the east and you're trying to get to
it does sound like Oregon Trail.
Yeah. Which is, because that feels weird in game. I didn't know that was an Oregon Trail thing. But you're going right to left, and that's just from video games. I was confused by the map at first because I'm like, what, aren't I on the left? Oh no, I'm not. Anyway, at the end of each zone, there is a barricade, so it's just a map with a lot of problems on it, and no upside except, if you get through it, you've completed the zone and that creates, from then on you can start from the next zone if you like, but it's a bit like Spelunky where you're kind of gimping yourself if you do that. But anyway, we showed up to this barricade and I'm playing on there isn't difficulty modes, but there's an option where you can enable level restarts, which means if you actually die, then you get the option to restart that map.
Right. Because I was actually going to ask quickly, is there any kind of rewind function?
No, that's the only one. And if you turn that on, you don't get certain achievements and stuff. It's very much like the easy mode. They're sort of trying to make you not play that way. But certainly when you're learning the game, you should, because you need to, when your campaign is scotched because of one mistake you made, you then have to get everyone killed to get to restart. Like there's no restart option. You have to actually make everybody die to get that option. And so I spend a lot of my time just like intentionally, walking up to aliens and not attacking them to make sure everybody dies so that I can restart the level. Anyway, this barricade level went badly, and we quickly got into a situation where there was no way out of it. I discovered to my peril that the 2 health enemy I killed, as well as having 2 health, after they die, their corpse becomes a impassable object. And it was on the road, and it was on the one space that was clear. The rest of the road is blocked, and so we just can't get past it. And you can drag it, but there was so many aliens on the map by that point that there was not room to drag it, even if I had enough turns, and I wouldn't get killed for doing it. Failed the map. Actually, just before I failed, a car pulled up, and it was, the shopkeeper, whose name I guess is Jorge, because when he shows up, your guys say, "Oh, it's Jorge." And he's like, traitors. And I think it was supposed to be a big oh no, this guy showed up at the worst possible moment. But actually it was we're already dead, mate. You didn't need to come here. Anyway, I died and then restarted the map. And then I kind of knew what I was doing a bit more, and I avoided attacking aliens for as long as possible and dragged things out of the way. And it was going kind of all right, but I'd used a pipe to kill some aliens, and that summons 2 enemies when you kill someone with a pipe.
Is it because it's a very resonant pipe?
And they do a good job with the sound design. Sound design and music actually is really good as well.
Bongs, really.
It properly bongs.
Yeah. That's extra bonk.
It's one of the few interactions where it is intuitive this would summon more enemies, because it makes a real resounding bong. And so it was one of those knife edge situations where
pipe edge situations.
Yep. The rounded edge of a pipe. If we'd had a knife, we would have been fine. It was a very much knife-free situation. Anyway, if we got away, if using the pipe excessively got us out of it, we would have been fine, but the consequences were catching up to us, and there was a fast enemy next to our car, and that is death, because a fast enemy can attack twice on their turn. A car can only take 2 hits before it's on fire. And there was no way to get away from it. And so, we got hit by it twice. Our car was on fire, and that turn Jorge shows up again. And and people are like, "Oh, it's Jorge," and he's like, "Hi, traitors."
Always late for his revenge.
Yeah, and our car just caught fire, and so
I see where this is going.
I was just like, "Okay, we're gonna restart this," and then I thought, there's another car here now. And Jorge, not a master of logistics, had got out of the back of his car. So his car is between him and us. So
hang on. He'd dived out the boot?
It's like a pickup truck. I didn't really see how he got out, but he was at the back, and he's surrounded by aliens, of course, because the whole map is covered in aliens. So he's actually dealing with the consequences of the things. He has a knife, by the way. And he stabs 2 aliens to death. And we're just like, that's a car. Our car's fucked. I think we just get in that car. And it had some fuel in it and everything. We just parked in his car and it just drove off. Sorry, Jorge. See you next time.
That's actually great.
Yeah. Yeah, so I got my story out of it. That's my one story from Overland that was...
You find next time you're in that situation, he shows up on a bike.
You better not steal this fucking bike.
Yeah, or on a horse. I don't know what I expected. Yeah, so it sounds like the issue, because you're describing it, because actually I quite like Oregon Trail style games. If people haven't played it, Oregon Trail, which is many years old at this point, is essentially a tribute to Oregon Trail in it's a DOS style kind of survival resource management game, but with a zombie apocalypse theme and a bunch of cool little interactions and mini games and things that does this as well. That theme does appeal to me, but it sounds like it's not generating those sort of the good stories that come from having succeeded for a certain amount of time with enough frequency.
You need to be in the game long enough for these things to build up, for these threads to establish themselves before they can pay off. And when it's this harsh, you're just dying it's not even that you're getting wiped out that often. Usually the only times I actually die is when I intentionally kill my people to restart the map. Much more common is you get in a situation where I'm just fucked. There's no way out of this. Like, we have no med kits. Both our people are injured. As soon as someone takes one hit, they can now only take one action per turn. So that's just death. Like, there's nothing you can do with one action per turn.
Yeah, right. Like, taking away your ability to act is so risky.
Yeah. And again, they've made that decision to create stories, and it sometimes does. You get nice moments where, like, one of you is injured and the other one isn't. That creates stories because you leave that person in the car, but then sometimes the one able-bodied person is out there doing stuff and that really needs just a bit of help, and the injured person will just get out and stagger along a bit to, like, get just far enough to hand them a knife or something, and that'll save them. And that's a nice little moment. But the other side of it is it snowballs like hell. If both your people are injured, it's just game over. You might as well just quit.
Right. Yeah. It sounds like I can understand on a hypothetical level the desire to have such a simple system. Everyone carries one object, almost board game like. Everyone carries one object. Enemies take one hit or two hits or clear a number of hits. Everyone has this number of action points unless they're in this, action points are health, all of these different, like, reducing everything to one pool of things. But I think the problem with that is, like, everything hurts omnidirectionally, like, all of the time. Like, and I was thinking about it, like, I was trying to think of, like, I like the idea of, health systems that are tied to your ability to, to resources that are more interesting than health itself and things like that. But, I wonder if I was thinking about, like, that action system problem and the fact that you have two actions and you often want more than two, and it's possible to make, I think the fact that it's possible to make mistakes that don't make logical sense is just a problem.
Yeah.
But beyond that, it feels like, I mean, and I'm trying to spitballing about a game I haven't played, but, like, it sounds like an issue that you are having to make such clear and kind of, decisions with the two actions you've got, but without enough information to know exactly what the consequences are going to be. So there's not a lot of room to react, which is fine in a survival scenario, but it's not satisfying, presumably, to then have to wait for your next opportunity to course correct. And a system that's kind of cool for this, that would be interesting to see how it worked in this scenario, is something like how, I don't think the game does this, Blood Bowl does this, as in the Warhammer football game, where it allows you to gamble on moving extra squares or basically taking extra actions. But every time this is a vast simplification of how the system works, but every time you do, it carries increasing risk. So in Blood Bowl, that's you try and run a few extra squares, your player trips over, you then get the dice roll that means they take an injury, you then get the dice roll that means they've died. Like, and that's the extreme consequence of it. But it could be something like, you can take as many actions in a turn as you want, but every action after the second one has a 50% chance of creating a noise. Something like that, where it'd be like, it's 50, and it could even just be 50% every time. I was to keep it super simple. It's just a flip of the coin. And so you'd get the people who have the amazing run where they just keep gambling and they just keep winning.
Yeah.
I think that sort of system works quite well in a scenario like this, because it allows people to break the rules at a mounting risk of disaster, which feels more survivally than I didn't plan perfectly, therefore I'm just doomed.
Yeah. I just remembered, when you asked about rewind things, there is actually an undo button, but only for movement and only in some situations. So, like, as soon as you've acted, you can't undo. And then if the map is foggy or dark, you can't undo at all. And that's because they don't want you to, like, scout ahead with one move, then undo it after you know what's there.
Right.
But fucking hell, the visibility system in those maps is so oppressive that you can't see diagonally at night. That's a rule about humans in this world. And this is, so there are games like Into the Breach, diagonals just don't exist. They're just, it's diagonal atheist, diagonal skeptic. I don't know what the term is. Like, there's no diagonals. You answer to any question about the rules of Into the Breach. If it involves the word diagonal, the answer is no. In this, you can move diagonally. And that's still only 1 point. So if you move to a diagonally adjacent square, that still costs you one action.
Ooh. And is it a hex grid or a square grid?
No, it's square.
Ooh.
So yeah, you're moving further.
Makes you feel a little weird.
Yeah, but, you can't interact diagonally. So if you want to, If you want to refuel a car and you're diagonal to the car, you can't do that. That sort of makes sense, but already you've created an inconsistency there where I'm keep forgetting, like, what are the rules here? Can I do this here?
So therefore the rule is you can move in 8 directions, but adjacency is 4? Like you
could phrase it that way, yeah.
Like,
but then, like I say, at night, you can only see the 4 adjacent squares, not the diagonal ones, even though you could move to those. But you can't move to them because you can't see them. And those cases, the effect for darkness doesn't cover the whole tile, so you actually kind of can see what's in the tile sometimes. And if it's a tile you've been to, it still gets turned to total blackness when you leave it. And so even when it's empty space you know is empty because you were just there, you can't move back into it. And I just got a character completely stuck because she moved into a place where the route she'd taken was blocked now, but there was a diagonal route she could take, but because you can't see it, she can't take it. And so she's just trapped next to some empty space she knows is empty, but she can't move there. I'm like, well, lost that character. Because you can't see diagonally at night.
That is actually, that sounds like a lore text you would find in Control.
Yep.
Yeah. Man.
Dogs can't look up and left.
Everyone is a goose worth of objects. It would make, I tell you what, you can completely redeem that inventory system by having everyone just carry things in their mouth. Like, no one knows how to carry things with their hands. The car is carrying it in, like, the lip of the bonnet or something. Like,
hand carrying is the lost knowledge of the precursor race.
Exactly. So everyone's just got...
the hand carriers once lived here, but we don't know how they did it.
How did they, the hand carriers, solve this? Good.
Yep. I don't know if that was a recommendation or not. There's good stuff in it and it's beautiful. But I mean, actually, I guess it's an Apple Arcade recommendation because it's perfect for that, where just like you get to try it and find out if this bleakness suits you or not. On Steam, it's 20 quid, which is quite a lot to gamble on that kind of, on a game where it's very, depressing.
Should we do some questions?
Yeah.
You and I, with our whiskey in this big echoey room. We've got a surprising number of questions that are essentially just prompts for sort of fantasy roleplay scenarios. By fantasy roleplay scenarios, I mean that strictly in the sort of Dungeons and Dragons.
In the wizard sense.
Elves and goblins and wizards and orcs sort of sense. Not any of the sense that you might have been thinking about. You know who you are. I don't know what I'm talking about. Russ has written, "Hi CNC, you must gather your party before venturing forth. Why? Because you've been transported into a D&D style RPG as new characters. As always, your first quest is to deal with the giant rats in the cellar of the Crate and Crowbar Tavern. Of all the many hosts and guests you've had on the pod, who would choose to help you get rid of them? Thanks for all the podcasts and welcome back, Marsh." There's a really crucial ambiguity in the wording of this question, because when I first read it, I thought it said, "Who would you choose to help you get rid of them?" But it actually says, "Who would choose to help you get rid of them?" So who do you think would volunteer to help? I suppose before we embark on this, we have to figure out what the party composition is, because there's only 2 people in this party, which may be the question answer wasn't asking. What class are you in this fantasy D&D world?
I guess thief.
Yeah, rogue.
/ assassin.
Yeah, wizard probably.
Problem with like being an assassin versus rats is like you'd be very good at taking out one of them. Then like you're not really a crowd control class.
The other rat turns around and says, "Must have been rats."
It was.
Must have been men.
Man, like a stealth game with rat guards would be amazing.
Yeah, like a mouse guard or like Red Wall kind of stealth game. Or rat guards in Goose Game.
Must have been a goose again.
Yeah, exactly.
As it always is.
You can tell when it's geese because they honk all the time.
It must have been geese. Probably that goose is honking at us and flapping his wings.
Yeah, exactly. And he's got your stuff as well.
With the cheese in his mouth. Which affects the acoustics of its honk.
It's so good. Imagine if the things Corvo was holding in his mouth affected the acoustics of his honk. So I'd probably be a wizard, I think. Well, in D&D, typically a bard, but in this scenario, probably a wizard. I think, again, there's almost no use of a wizard in this scenario because everything you do is, massively disproportionate to the problem at hand.
Yeah, we need a warrior. Who would be a warrior from our...
John Roberts?
Yeah.
He's big and strong.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got them climbing muscles, which can presumably also be used for violence.
Yep. Otherwise, why would anyone climb?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's
what are you going to do when you get to the top? There could be enemies there.
Graham's very tall, but I don't know if you.
Oh yeah,
help.
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, Graham's definitely got a lot of, what's like the boxing term for
reach?
Yeah.
Reach. Do you need reach to punch a rat?
I don't know. Well, if you're very tall, you do, because now you're very high up.
Yeah, exactly.
Very low.
So, but in that scenario, is Pip not the obvious choice?
Perhaps.
But I think when the question is who would choose to help you get rid of them, that's just a flat out no there.
I think Pip would befriend the rats and lead them to new adventures. Get into hijinks.
And like a kind of, is that a reverse Pied Piper scenario, or is that just the Pied Piper
I think
scenario?
it's more or less just what Pied Piper did.
Yeah. Pied Pipper? I don't know.
What class would Tom Senior and Alex Wiltshire be?
Tom Senior,
I see Alex as a mage as well, or maybe a warlock.
Tom Senior, I think Ranger, because no one knows where the fuck he is half the time.
And he's got a wild man facial hair.
Wild man facial hair. Yeah. Alex. I can see the mage thing. I think he's got the sort of, grimoires in his tower sort of vibe down pat. I think that's right. I could see Bard.
If there was like an engineer / tinkerer class, I can see that for him. A, because he wears glasses, and B, because he writes a column called The Mechanic.
Yeah, that's true.
My reasoning is very shallow.
How about Marsh?
Marsh is a goblin.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
which is not a class.
I defamed him over the course of 6 hours, into that effect.
It's worked, because I definitely think of him as a goblin now. And he might be my first choice to deal with the rats, because I also feel like he'd have
I think, though, more seriously, I would probably go cleric for actual class. I think mostly because I think there's an aspect of disapproving of everything around you that comes hand in hand with like being a cleric, you know?
He would disapprove those rats so hard.
It's a shit cellar.
I remember he had a pretty bad woodlouse issue in the graveyard house, and that feels.
They followed him here. Don't you worry.
I thought that might have trained him to deal with vermin of larger sizes too.
I think maybe he might actually just be the cleric of woodlice, like of the god of woodlice. You know what I mean?
Or the Pied Piper of woodlice.
Yeah. Well, we've got one for each kind of creature in that case, which is good. I don't think we answered what class Pip would be. Druid. Definitely Druid.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we answered that. Actually, well, who would choose to help you is the part of that I was stuck on. Who would actually volunteer to help? I think again, probably John. Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. Is it like only people who aren't here are the people we're choosing from?
I would probably volunteer.
Yeah, I feel you would volunteer.
No one would want me to. You know, it's fireballs, but yeah. Next one comes from Fiasco, who writes, Dear Amnesiacs and tutorial prompts. You're playing an RPG, once again, and a feisty party member feels they should be the leader of the party and not you. What happens as you are sidelined from your own game? What role do you end up playing in the world and story after the successful coup? So I think this is pretty much, you're no longer an active player character, you're now a non-player character. Who are you? I
would like to be the enchanter NPC who you take weapons to, and they add some properties to it and maybe fuck it up. I feel like there's a lot of room to grow in that career path. Like being a blacksmith would be probably satisfying work, but I feel it'd be roughly the same at all times. And whereas enchanting, it feels like there's a lot more variety.
I'd like to be the Usually in a Diablo game or something, there's usually like one hapless NPC that you have to end up rescuing in like every zone. Like they just keep getting stuck in something.
Yeah.
I think that's who I'd want to be. Like, how do I get in here? Like that sort of vibe.
You could, the worst role would be the person who dies at the start of Diablo 1 to establish the stakes.
Actually, no, that is who I would be. I would be, guardsman locked outside of gates as hero party arrives in midst of zombie attack. Like, person, everyone else, like, so after you defeat the zombie incursion or whatever, and the doors to the town swing open, and the captain of the guard comes out and says, "Oh, adventurer, we couldn't save Chris, but thank God you're here." And then you like, you know, you can maybe earn your very first renegade point of the game by looting my trousers.
I love that the captain of the guard at the start of Diablo 3, the first thing he says, there's a little fight, and then after the fight he always says, "I've never seen anyone fight like that." Like, mate, you get every single person who plays Diablo comes through here. You've never seen a wizard before.
But and also, like, I also quite like that line because it works the other way as well, because, like, Diablo 3 particularly, like, its abilities start at 11. Like, you don't like, you know, begin with like sword swing, you know, or like hammer bash or something. Like if you're a, you know, crusader or something, you've got like a magical glowing hammer that flies in a circle around you already that does like a flat amount of damage to everything near you. And so I can believe it if he's peeking over the top of the guard fence and there's like a woman in full plate, like just letting a autonomous golden hammer pummel zombies to death over time next to you, would walk out and say, "I've never seen anyone fight like that," because it doesn't make any sense. So yeah, Enchanter and Corpse is the answer to that one. Next question comes from David, who writes, "Hi all, you are a cabal of morally ambiguous wizards."
Thank you for noticing.
Thank you. You have the power to grant one free game to all of your listeners, but they must all play it to completion. What game do you choose? Take care, David. I like the take care there, which is either like a nice normal email sign off, like take care, or a warning.
Take this task seriously.
Yeah. Don't piss about now. Also, there's a PS here, which we should read beforehand. PS. The Japanese title of an Untitled Goose Game. I'm not going to be able to pronounce the Japanese, but it translates to Untitled Goose Game, a rascally goose has turned up.
Wow, there's your real title.
And he has. I think rascally is a good descriptor, actually.
Yeah.
And I think maybe what we were trying to touch on earlier is more stealth games need to star rascals rather than murderers.
I've heard mischief as well, which is feels appropriate and is underused in games.
Pip has a concept of a small crime. And she would really be to explain this. It's a very specific sort of energy of crime. But it's a game of small crimes. Like, it's not a game of the classic ones, you know, like fraud or murder.
I've forgotten the question already.
You are a cabal of moral ambiguous wizards. You have the power to grant one free game. But they have to play it to completion.
I mean, with a lot of these questions, the temptation is to not say Portal. Oh, sorry, the challenge is not to not say Portal, because Portal is the answer to so many questions people ask.
Another game of don't say Portal ends in failure.
The one that sprung to mind after I dismissed Portal was A Short Hike, because it isn't too long and it's got a very rewarding end, I thought. And yeah, you can get there. Like, because to pick like a massive RPG would be a cruelty, I think.
Pillars of Eternity.
Yeah. And even Outer Wilds.
I was going to say Outer Wilds.
I love Outer Wilds and you should play it, but forcing people to complete it, there are some legit reasons to be frustrated with that game at times.
I think so, although I think it's so rewarding. That's why I was going to suggest it. It's like, it's in that category of like, if everyone who is given this game for free is also compelled to finish it, that's, unless someone real bad, ocean willies, which is a legitimate reason to not finish it. I feel like everyone would feel good about having got to the end of that. Like it really feels like, you know, the puzzles are really rewarding, like particularly if it was, and do so without, you know, looking at a wiki or getting help. Like it's one of the many reasons it's very likely to be my game of the year is because it's all of its logic is so satisfying to come to understand. And that is the reason I would choose it is because, the process of finishing it isn't just solving all of the problems in it or beating it or mastering all the mechanics. It's like a process of, coming to an understanding of both the story and also the logic of its kind of little clockwork solar system. And that is such a joy to come to understand that the stipulation in this question that the people have to finish it actually becomes almost a positive. Like, I think Outer Wilds is a game people could feel like they understood quickly as they go, oh, I fly around and I look at stuff, cool. But like, it is so rewarding to come to understand how everything works that I want that experience for a lot of people.
If you maybe like, a question, that would be interesting is like, if you have like a little motivation potion and you get to give it to everybody who plays a certain game, which game do you get? Like, just make sure you get through this, like, just a little pick me up.
Yeah, that's like, as in a sort of, or like a,
it's worth finishing this.
What's the opposite of a curse? Like a boon that sort of guarantees someone will finish it. Yeah. And like, you know, would you say it would be like almost like guarantees that someone will have like the optimal experience of finishing it? Like they figure out the answers right as they need them, that kind of thing? Or
that would be great, but that might be make it too easy.
What would your answer
just that, like, because it's interesting to consider which games are really where the ending really kind of pays off and you really are glad you got to it. Because that was not, I mean, actually that kind of was, I thought of Short Hike because the ending is satisfying, but also because it's really easy to get to. I was thinking like, if I'm going to force people to play this, then I want to pick something that's easy to get to the end of. But your logic was pick something where they might not otherwise get to the end of it.
Yeah. Bayonetta, maybe, for me. I think that has, I do love escalation, and that game escalates really, really in a really entertaining way. But I could also understand why people just don't click with certain kinds of action games, or it gets quite hard, or hard boss fights and things. So that's a game where I'd be, you know, very happy for people to get to see everything. I think there are also plenty of From Software and Souls games to which this applies as well. Bloodborne, Sekiro.
Yeah.
But none of them end with you riding a motorbike up a flying skyscraper to fight God. So Bayonetta.
Have you played Sayonara Wild Hearts?
Not yet. It's very highly recommended, but I'm waiting because I still don't have a TV. And so I'm kind of waiting for a big TV sort of experience.
It's, riding motorbikes on improbable things is definitely a feature of that game. I'm playing it, but I'm not, getting on super well with it. Well, I appreciate, it seems to be a good one of what it is, but what it is not my kind of thing. But I keep hearing things that are just like, what? This game is that? And so I think I'm just going to end up watching a YouTube playthrough because I like the music and I like to see what it's doing.
It is briefly, because I think, so Sayonara Wild Hearts is
it's, a rhythm music based game, being compared to Rez a lot, where you are taken extremely quickly through some sort of cityscapes and forests and stuff, usually on a motorbike or a flying tarot card, while things attack you and you try and collect hearts and pop music plays. And the levels are like literally 50 seconds long. They're absurdly quick. And you have very little time to react to anything. And that's kind of my problem with it, is I can't react fast enough. And so it's kind of trial and error for me. But people are talking about it in like, it introduces new mechanics and throws them away very, very quickly, which is true. As far as I've played, it hasn't got to anything mega interesting, but I keep hearing things that it does.
Yeah, is that not on PC yet? Is it? Question mark?
I don't know. It's on, I think it's an Apple Arcade. Yeah, it's an Apple Arcade thing. And it's also out on PS4 at the moment because that's where
Switch.
I was playing it.
I don't know. I don't know, Tom.
I've got this feeling that it will come to PC if it hasn't already. And if you have a Mac, I guess it's coming to that next month because that's when Apple Arcade stuff arrives on Mac, I think.
Our final question for this evening comes from Gabe, who writes, Dear Large Wooden Chest and Club of Crate Slaying +3, which is funny because this question isn't about transporting us into a role-playing scenario, but it's got the most appropriate intro. In a recent episode, he writes, Tom Francis, that's you, devised a naming scheme for roguelikes in which the number of times that the word rogue appears tells you how much like Rogue the game is, and the number of times the word like appears tells you how much the game uses modern conveniences. For example, a rogue-like would be a game that is quite similar to the original Rogue, with just a few modern game ideas. Under this naming convention, what genre of game is Rogue? Is there a maximum number of times that the word rogue can appear in the description of a game? Or maybe each instance of the word rogue only gets you half of the remaining distance to rogue, like some Xeno's roguelike. In that case, I guess the genre of rogue would have to be rogue, etc. Gabe, Tom, unpick this. The worst game classification idea you've ever had.
One way to retcon it would be that, like, it's proportional. So however many rogues divided by how many of the likes you get, like, it's sort of, it's balanced relative. So then you can have as many or as few as you need. So, like, anything like 5 rogues and 10 likes is equivalent to 1 rogue and 2 likes. But if you need to be really specific, and it's really more of a 30, no, I'm trying to think of prime numbers.
So, I mean, so it really functions, it's a fraction. It's rogue over like, right?
that's one way to dodge this question. But I have to be honest, that is not what I had in mind when I thought of this, cause I was thinking that you sometimes want to express that basically a roguelike is different to a roguelike. There could be something that's, for any given game, there could be something that's both more similar to Rogue and has more modern conveniences. So I think,
yeah, and that's not a roguelike. That's a rogue, like.
Yep. Getting ever closer to Rogue without ever fully reaching Rogue. Under that system, the name for Rogue would be, and I don't know how to say it out loud, but I think it's Sigma, Rogue 0 pointy line to infinity is the mathematical symbol for where you have a series where you want to express the sum of all possible values within that series, but you can't actually write down them all because it goes on forever. Right. Yeah,
we get just one of those Excel kind of like divide by row-ish bugs.
I mean, the interesting thing about that in maths is that it does have an answer. Like, it's, even though what you're writing is kind of impossible, there is a way to know what the answer is. Limit as you tend towards infinity. It's one of those things where, like, you can't divide by 0, but there are some things where as it tends towards 0, it gets closer and closer to this value. And there's also things in maths where it's like, so it looks like when it's at 0, it would be that value. And the mathematicians will say, no, it can't ever be. We don't know what that is. If you divide by 0, everything gets crazy.
Would you say that the point where you're arguing that under this classification it is actually technically possible to resolve what the meaning of the genre would be, the genre classification system at that point may be too complicated?
No. Not sure what you mean by that.
This is the most direct application of a massive philosophy degree I've ever seen.
Gotta use it for something.
I hope that answers that question. Just hang on. Does this make Call of Duty a Doom clone?
So wait, clone is the modern conveniences part.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say, does that make Call of Duty a like? Loads of modern conveniences, nothing to do with Rogue.
It makes it an infinite recursive like. I guess.
It's all modern conveniences.
But I suppose, I mean, everything is infinitesimally like Rogue. If you can die, it's a little bit like Rogue. The titled Goose Game is nothing like Rogue. It's like almost completely persistent. You can't fail. And the action of most of the villains is, it's the most unlike a roguelike. It's like, that's kind of what it is. Like, the action of all of the AI in the game is to undo your progress without taking away your ability to reattempt it. Yeah. Which is it is to give you second chances, which is the opposite of a roguelike. Huh. I don't know. That's not really profound in any meaningful way, but it might be true. Yeah. So that would be so Goose Game would actually be a like. Yeah. Because it has no rogue element, because even Call of Duty, you would say you can die. You can lose progress. Yeah. It is a tiny infinitesimal amount of rogue. It'd be like,
and there's combat, for example.
Yeah. It'd be like rogue, like. Whereas Goose Game, not so.
Like, I wonder how many likes Goose Game gets. It does have a lot of modern conveniences. Yeah, I suppose it has a lot of modern conveniences.
Yeah, what would be its rogue elements? That's the thing, right? Like, in order to completely decouple the two, like, I suppose, I don't know.
I feel like Monument Valley has the most likes. It's the most convenient game. It almost plays itself. It's so intuitive and so slick and it's on touchscreen devices, so that's modern. It's just extremely slick and easy to play, and just kind of, you just go through it, and also has almost nothing to do with Rogue. Also has nothing to do with like.
Valve, if you're listening, Steam Labs, add a slider that is Rogue on one end and like on the other.
Or two sliders, one for Rogue and one for like. Or a graph, a two-dimensional graph.
Now it's too complicated.
Plot a position on the Rogue like two-dimensional space and return me games that fit that. It's how many times have people tagged it with Rogue and how many times have people tagged it with like.
Now we have a four-dimensional, maybe even a 3D volume with Rogue and like and Doom and Clone.
So if you could do it with existing data by how many players have tagged it with Rogue, versus how many players have liked it in reviews.
But let's not. In fact, let's not. Sorry.
Let's just not in general.
Yeah. If you'd like to send us a question for a future episode of the podcast, or indeed just a prompt to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, or a way of making this genre classification system useful as anything except a kind of several glasses in kind of thought exercise.
Suggestions for other pairs of two words that you could use to two-dimensionally rank games.
Yeah, EA and sports.
It's more of an EA, sports.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's a lot of games that are very EA and not at all sports.
Like Mass Effect.
Yeah, but there's a little bit of sports, because they're probably, you know, you can run around. You're dressed in football armor. American football armor. I don't know. All I do know is that it's in the game. You can do that by emailing us at questions@crateandcrowbar.com. You can also tweet us at Crate and Crowbar. Thank you as ever to our Patreon supporters. You know who you are. And if you don't know that about yourself, but you'd like to, then you can find out more at patreon.com/Crate and Crowbar. We have a YouTube channel, youtube.com/Crate and Crowbar. There's nothing on there except episodes of this podcast, which you've now listened to. So, Discord community remains lovely. You can find a link to the Discord on our website, crateandcrowbar.com. All that remains are the handles of Twitter. I'm at C Thurston. That's CTHURSTEN. Tom?
I'm at Pentact, PENT80ACT.
Lovely. Thanks for listening. It's weird when there's only two of us.
Yeah, you need a cacophony. The worst would be if you were just doing a solo podcast, because everyone would hear exactly how you say it.
I've done that, and I can't remember what I did at the end. Also, my voice is going, so we really should go now.